Good evening, everyone. It's great to see everybody. Thank you for coming and being here all together this evening. So as you know, we're beginning tonight our reflections on Cultivating the Empty Field, which is a compilation of work written by Hongzhi Zhengjue, and translated by Taigen Dan Leighton. And Hongzhi is pronounced Hongzhi. I have it on good authority. So in spite of appearances, it's Hongzhi Zhengjue, who lived from 1091 to 1157. And his name, Hongzhi, means vast wisdom, and Zhengjue means true awakening. There's quite a name to carry. So you will remember, I think, that Dogen was born in 1200 and died in 1253. So he was born a little less than 50 years after Hongzhi died. And he was greatly influenced by Hongzhi. Hongzhi lived, and I want to just give you a little bit of background, but I won't give you much because there's so much in the introduction to this book, which is available online as a PDF, and which Nancy has so well summarized for us and is attached to the weekly email. But in any case, I'll say that he lived much of his monastic life as abbot at his temple on Tiantong Mountain, which is the same mountain where Dogen spent much of his time in China, and where Dogen met his master Rujing, who is Tendo Nyojo in Japanese. You may recognize the name from our ancestral line. Anyway, Rujing was in Hongzhi's lineage. So Hongzhi is not far outside our own lineage. And Hongzhi was the first master to fully articulate silent illumination meditation, what we call serene reflection meditation, the kind of meditation that we practice, what Dogen called just sitting. I'm going to quote now from the preface of this book. The writings of the 12th century Chan master Hongzhi Zhengjue are poetic expressions of meditative concentration and insight, and of the working of awakened mind. So writes Taigen Dan Leighton. He continues, these rich and dense teachings might be read most usefully as one reads poetry. Hongzhi employed a style more holographic than the rational expository style of Western thought. Each of his paragraphs encapsulates the whole teaching. Each of his paragraphs encapsulates the whole teaching. And these teachings are also basic meditation instructions. So Hongzhi is teaching us how to do meditation. So tonight I wanted to talk about, and I should say that this book is maybe my very favorite Buddhist book. I really love it. And one of its marvels to me is this poetic form of expression that it takes, and also that it's divided up into paragraphs, and one paragraph is chock-a-block full of really very fine teachings. And so I'm going to start tonight with the very first paragraph in Cultivating the Empty Field by Hongzhi, which Taigen Dan Leighton has titled The Bright Boundless Field. And I want to read the paragraph to you, the whole thing. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. Utter emptiness has no image. Upright independence does not rely on anything. Just expand and illuminate the original truth, unconcerned by external conditions. Accordingly, we are told to realize that not a single thing exists. In this field, birth and death do not appear. The deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and can respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner. The subtlety of seeing and hearing transcends mere colors and sounds. The whole affair functions without leaving traces and mirrors without obscurations. Very naturally, mind and dharmas emerge and harmonize. An ancient said that non-mind embodies and fulfills the way of non-mind. Embodying and fulfilling the way of non-mind, finally, you can rest. Proceeding, you are able to guide the assembly. With thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander into the center of the circle of wonder. This is how you must penetrate and study. In his preface to this book, Tenshin Reb Anderson writes, after he quotes a paragraph by Hongzhi, he writes, "This teaching speaks for itself. I need not add to it." And I have to say that I know exactly how he feels. To me, to talk about this passage is not to gild the lily, it's to crush and stomp on the lily. So I hope you will be patient with me. I don't think I can begin to do Hongzhi justice. And I want to put the last sentence first. And then I'm going to go through the paragraph. The last sentence is, "This is how you must penetrate and study." So begin with that thought. And now this paragraph tells us how to penetrate and study. The paragraph begins, "The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning." The field of boundless emptiness is the circle at the top of the Kechimiyaku, the bloodline certificate that you receive for those of you who have received the precepts, the empty circle out of which all things flow and to which all things return. The empty field is the field of Buddha nature. It's also the Tao, and Chinese Chan is very heavily based in the Tao. The empty circle is what David Hinton translates as the source tissue. Again, that out of which all things arise and to which all things return. It's where we live when we return again and again to emptiness. The recognition that no thing is independently self-existing, and no thing is as our habits of mind describe it. In meditation, in silent illumination, we focus awareness on the self and turn the light within, which is to return to and to enact the bright shining field of boundless emptiness. I think the word boundless is quite beautiful here and critical. Boundless space, open, empty space, spaciousness, boundlessness. All of these are metaphors for enlightenment. And this field exists from the very beginning. It exists from the very beginning. It is never absent and was never not here. We can never lose it. Hongzhi continues, you must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. So to purify is to grind down, which is to do the work of ridding ourselves of defilements, the defiling passions, the obstructions which arise to enlightenment. Habits are attachments and discriminations, anything we do which separates, including naming things. And purifying is also to enter fully and completely into enlightenment in this very moment, to penetrate emptiness in this very moment, to cast off or drop off body and mind. We realize enlightenment as the all-pervading, illuminating nature of all that is, of all that exists. That is, to purify is not a lot of grinding work. It's to open immediately to Buddha nature. And what we are purifying away, the defilements, are also Buddha nature. The defilements are not outside of enlightenment. They're not outside of the empty circle. Hongzhi continues, then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. This is exactly true. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. It's like being a mirror that reflects without obscuration, or like looking into a completely clear, very deep pool of water. It's living in a clear circle of brightness. Joy and gratitude are ever present, and yet that is truly to gild the lily. Joy and gratitude are extra. In his introduction, Taigen Dan Leighton says that these first 3 sentences are the whole of Hongzhi's teaching. So let me read them again. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. But Hongzhi goes on. He says, utter emptiness has no image. Upright independence does not rely on anything. Just expand and illuminate the original truth, unconcerned by external conditions. Accordingly, we are told to realize that not a single thing exists. In this field, birth and death do not appear. So images, relying on things, external conditions, not a single thing exists, birth and death. These are all ways of dividing things, and they are all the particulars of our lives. The way that we divide undivided reality so that we can manage and control it. Here, Hongzhi is contrasting divided reality from undivided reality, the field of utter emptiness. He goes on, the deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and can respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner. So the deep source, transparent down to the bottom, etc., is enlightenment, Buddha nature, or the universal truth. Each speck of dust are all the things we encounter in day-to-day life, the particulars of our life. Returning and returning to the bright, boundless field offers us the way to respond to each speck unencumbered, consciously choosing to return in each moment. It doesn't really matter what is happening. Conjure up the worst scenario you can. It really doesn't matter. If it matters, we are encumbered. The instruction is to allow the deep, transparent, radiantly shining source inform all our encounters without becoming the partner of those particular things that are arising, without becoming sucked into them and caught by them, attached to them. Hongzhi says, the subtlety of seeing and hearing transcends mere colors and sounds. That is, we begin to see and hear with our spiritual senses. In Dogen's terms, we see with our ears and hear with our eyes. Hongzhi writes, the whole affair functions without leaving traces and mirrors without obscurations. That is, enlightened action leaves no wake. He continues, very naturally, mind and dharmas emerge and harmonize. That is, the bright, boundless field of emptiness, the enlightened mind, harmonizes with all that exists. Dharmas, in this sense, is being used to indicate all the particulars of our daily life. So the bright, boundless field of emptiness harmonizes with all that exists. We don't get rid of all that exists. We don't resist what exists. We move and flow in harmony with it, never opposing, never wishing it weren't there. Hongzhi continues, an ancient said that non-mind embodies and fulfills the way of non-mind. Embodying and fulfilling the way of non-mind, finally you can rest. What I think he's suggesting is that dropping off rational thinking fulfills the way. Letting go embodies and fulfills the way of letting go. And yes, we do indeed embody it. We embody letting go. Letting go becomes a sensation that we live and experience, that we become familiar with in our own bodies. And the way of letting go is flowing with what is. Can we turn towards and walk alongside of? Each time we do this, we are resting. And that may sound hard to believe at times, but in fact, when we turn towards, alongside of, when we flow with what is, we are resting. Opposition, clashing, not wanting, leave us, and all places become refuges. So opposition drops away, and all places become refuges. To live in emptiness, which is to constantly have the rug pulled out from under us is not to become a flailing and struggling being. It's to rest in a fundamental, primary, we might say primitive way. Hongzhi continues, proceeding, you are able to guide the assembly. That is, you now have something to offer to others. So now we actually have the best, most valuable gift that we can offer to others. We offer our presence, we offer our listening, we offer our love. Not our opposition and resistance, but our love. And we offer the perspective of the bright, boundless field. All of this subsumes anger, hatred, and resistance. And from here, we can act wisely and compassionately without effort. And then others can do the same. This is what we have to give. And we can live knowing that this is the best thing we can give. It's what we can do in response when we wonder what we can do. Then comes the last sentence, and this sentence, I have to tell you, is my all-time favorite. I'm not sure that I can approach this sentence without crying, to be honest. The last sentence is, with thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander into the center of the circle of wonder. With thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander into the center of the circle of wonder. So thoughts clear, sitting silently is our meditation practice. Silent illumination or serene reflection, however you translate it. Just sitting, mirroring without obscuration, leaving no traces. Wander. You know, I had to look this one up in the dictionary, which says, part of what it says is walk in a leisurely, casual, or aimless way. But what strikes me about wandering is that there's an absence again of effort. We're meandering and there's no goal. We're free to explore and see what will arise, what will present itself. And we're free to be with whatever arises. How might we be surprised? What may we be offered to rejoice in, to have gratitude for, to wonder about and with, to just simply wonder about the miraculousness of all that's presented to us. The center of the circle of wonder. Wander into the center of the circle of wonder. So the center is right in the midst of, the still point in the center. And what is this circle of wonder? I wonder what you think it might be. Can we say that it is something, a place perhaps, wonder and awe, of awesomeness, of the terrible, not in the sense of something bad, but in the sense of something so incredible we can't fathom it or hold it like God. I think it's also a place-time in which we wonder about whatever we encounter, that is, come to it with questions rather than answers, a sense of not knowing it rather than a sense that we've already got it pegged. Not naming it, not labeling it, just being there with it and seeing it without preconceptions and preconditions, and knowing that we may never penetrate the mystery. In the center of the circle of wonder, we're surprised, amazed, and awed. I would suggest that it's Buddha nature itself, and also a place where we can't be harmed. I think this is something to consider. Do we know a place within that can't be harmed? Consider that Buddha nature cannot be harmed, and that the teaching is that we all have Buddha nature. We all are Buddha nature. We all are Buddha. Has there been a place, time in your life, in my life, when we've felt this? Has there been a moment in our life when we could take refuge there, just for a moment? It's important that we remember, recollect this moment. It's really important to go back to it and to bring it to the present and offer to ourselves further moments like this. Not forcing them, we can't make them happen. But when we recollect this moment, it can become present to us. At the same time, we must take care because, in fact, we can be harmed. Examples are rampant. We can be harmed by watching violent movies, by drinking too much alcohol. We can be harmed by gang members. And I'm thinking somewhat randomly here, of Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries in LA, who we talked about on previous Monday evenings. We can be harmed, who works with gangs, by the way, and gang members. Can we be harmed by old age? And I'm sorry, we can be harmed by old age and death. Or we think we can be harmed by old age and death. But can we really? Remember, as Hongzhi says, in this field, birth and death do not appear. When we're feeling aggrieved by the latest symptom, is there a place in us that is not aggrieved? So, as Dogen tells us, our practice comes down to ordinary daily life. Can we live such an ordinary daily life from the center of the circle of wonder? Hongzhi in this passage keeps moving back and forth between enlightenment, Buddha nature, and the particulars of everyday life. These two truths we've talked about, the universal and the particular. So I think of ordinary daily life in this way that Jim West brought up last Monday evening, actually, when we were at Applegate. He asked about this line from a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins, in which Hopkins uses the phrase ordinary and extraordinary as rain. And I'm really taken by that phrase. And isn't our ordinary daily life ordinary and extraordinary as rain? And it occurs to me that this is the fundamental difference between an ordinary cook and a tenzo. This question that came out of our intensive practice period, at least for me. The Tenzo lives the life of an ordinary cook, an ordinary daily life, in the center of the circle of wonder. In Tenzo Kyokun, Dogen's instructions for the chief cook, Dogen is teaching us how to do this. And that's what's important about that piece of writing. So ordinary and extraordinary as rain. Can we live in that place? Thank you all for listening.